Why is the Canadian government hesitant to crack down on Khalistanis?
They must be getting some benefit out of it. The regime of the day would be getting some benefit of support, benefit of money, benefit of protection, benefit of getting elected. So there must be some benefit. So what we have termed it as, it is for the domestic vote bank. How can a responsible head of government say what are the contents of the ongoing investigation? In most of the law-abiding countries, this is a crime.
Did they show you any document whereby there is proof that India was involved in Nijjar's killing?
Zero zilch. Nothing. Canada wants them to be there and they are so kind to them. Canada is a huge country. Give a space to them, call it Khalistan.
Where can they make a Khalistan in Canada?
Oh my God, there is so much of open space.
So if Khalistan is to be made, it is in Canada, never in India.
Never in India.
Are they collaborating, Pakistan and Canada, in this?
My gut feeling is that there would be some kind of loose linkage between the two.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching or listening to the ANR podcast with Smita Prakash. My guest today is Sanjay Verma, former Indian High Commissioner to Canada. Before I begin my conversation, here's a short backgrounder. India and Canada have sent home, expelled or recalled their top diplomats amid escalating tensions over the killing of a Sikh separatist or Khalistani gangster, as you may want to term him, on Canadian soil. India-Canada relations have plummeted ever since, and with Trudeau government blaming India for targeted killing and India denying the charge. Thank you, Mr. Verma, for being a part of the podcast. I look forward to this conversation. We'll do a mix of Hindi and English, and it's so good to have you back in the country.
Thank you so much. Thank you and namaskar to all your viewers.
तो पहले तो हमें ये बताइए, ये confusion दूर कीजिए कि आप expelled है कि recalled है, because in various sites there are various explanations.
तो अगर आप कनाडा के साइट्स को देखेंगे तो मैं expelled हूँ.
Right.
और अगर आप हमारे साइट्स को देखेंगे तो मैं withdrawn हूँ. और कुछ कहते हैं recalled हूँ. मैं कहूँगा called back हूँ.
So you called back.
Yes.
What does the term called back mean?
तो इसका अर्थ ये है कि मेरे देश ने यह निर्णय लिया कि मुझे यहाँ पर वापस बुला लिया जाए किसी भी कारण से, और वो कारण सुरक्षा के हो सकते हैं, कारण ये हो सकते हैं कि शायद मैं अच्छा काम नहीं कर रहा हूँ, ये भी कारण हो सकता है.
अच्छा, they don't need to explain to everybody.
No.
Okay.
So what happened? I'll just run you through the chronology.
Right.
So on 12th of October, which was a Sunday, I went to their foreign ministry, which is known as Global Affairs Canada, GAC, at around 10 o'clock in the morning. I and my Deputy High Commissioner. And then they talked a bit, and then they handed over to us a sealed envelope saying that, there is a note in this, and you and 5 other colleagues of yours are persons of interest for interrogation in case of Nijjar's killing. I came back, straight face. They might have got a bit irritated that this guy is not flabbergasted. Came back, informed Delhi. Then Delhi called their acting High Commissioner in New Delhi, the Canadian acting High Commissioner.
Because the Canadian High Commissioner had already been expelled.
Left.
Okay.
No, already left.
Left.
Sorry.
Okay.
No, he was not.
Okay.
So it was the acting High Commissioner. So he came with one of his colleagues, Deputy High Commissioner, and the senior most official in the Ministry of External Affairs who deals with Canada. He told him that, look, we have received, this is very unsavory. This is something which breaks all the trust between the two of us, and therefore we are calling back and withdrawing our High Commissioner and 5 others whom you have named as person of interest. So he might have reported back to the headquarters. All of us do that. Then they decided that, okay, India has withdrawn you, but we will declare you persona non grata. So we were declared persona non grata, all 6 of us, given a time deadline of 19th of October, 11:59 p.m. to leave the country. Otherwise, our diplomatic immunity will be no more valid.
Okay.
So this is the whole chronology. So technically speaking, I am withdrawn, I am called back. Some people call it recall as well. So I am one of these. But the Canadian government has the prerogative to declare me persona non grata at any point of time. It's their pleasure. And they did so, but they did so after we had already withdrawn ourselves.
So now, when you say persons of interest, can you explain to our viewers and listeners what person of interest means as per Canadian law? Is it the same like in America? And did you expect it? Like, have they gone through that chronology as per the judicial process that is there in Canada?
I had no warning. I was never alerted that they were looking at me as well. Though I had RCMP officers as close protection with me, and they might have been relaying all the movements. And just to my friends, I can assure them that none of my movement was suspicious. I had nothing to fear. Then when they declare person of interest, what they basically mean is that one will have to submit oneself to the federal policing, in this case known as RCMP, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, who will then ask questions to me in connection with a certain episode which they think as crime. And then I have to respond to that under oath.
So in this case, it was related to the crime that was committed on Canadian soil, which is the killing of Nijjar. But they've accused you of other things also, right? So could they have inquired about those things also?
So the diplomatic note only talked about this dreaded terrorist Nijjar's killing. Other things came in a press conference.
Do they mention in that, I'm sorry to interrupt, do they mention that a Canadian Nijjar, or in that is it mentioned as terrorist Nijjar, militant Nijjar, separatist Nijjar?
It was Canadian Nijjar. I mean, they didn't mention Canadian.
But Canadian citizen.
Was Canadian citizens
That's
killed
all.
on on the Canadian soil. So their designation is different than our designation, and that's fine.
Sure.
I will not take that otherwise. And thereafter, they said that my diplomatic immunity and that of my colleagues should be waived so that I can be interrogated. Now, ideally, they should have shared the evidence with me for what I am being investigated. What is the evidence that they have? So that even as a normal citizen, anyone could go and then defend himself or herself. In this case, I was the ranking representative of India there. So it's a bad diplomatic practice. Even with our bordering neighbor, Pakistan, it has never happened. Even during the Cold War, they did not resort to declaring each other's ambassadors as persona non grata. Other diplomats, yes. So as far as my recollection goes, this has happened for the first time in the history of Indian diplomacy, that an Indian ambassador has been declared persona non grata by another, in this case, a friendly country.
So they obviously think that it is serious enough to declare you PNG and ask you to leave within a few days. There is that entire you mentioned in several interviews of law, in interviews, and I saw that interview on CTV also, where you kept repeating India is a country which has the rule of law, just like Canada. And then I saw subsequently you kept saying that. And in that interview, you repeated it several times. Is it so difficult for Canadians to believe that India is a country of where rule of law works? Do they really think we live in the dark ages?
So a normal Canadian respect India. Canada is a very welcoming country. It's a beautiful country.
Yes.
I have so many friends there, so many beautiful memories. But unfortunately, a group of people who are heading the country at the moment, they have some illusions about India still not arrived at the world stage, without realizing we are the fifth largest economy in the world, moving on to becoming the fourth and third very soon. without realizing we are the largest democracy in the world, without realizing we are the most populous country in the world, without realizing that by Amrit Kal, by 2047, we will be a $30 trillion plus economy. So you look at from whichever angle, they should have realized that they're talking to a country which is at least equal.
So do you think that the Canadian media doesn't want to accept it, or is immune to changing global situation, or do they not realize? I mean, India and Canada have robust relations. They know that we are a democracy. We've had people-to-people contact. We've had their prime ministers, several prime ministers come to our country. They've seen that we have judiciary, we have legislature, we have executive, we have a media, a robust media, and we have a robust social media presence. They know all that, and despite that, I saw that very difficult situation in that interview where you were at pains to explain that we have procedures in India too.
You know, sometimes it is politically motivated, which we have been saying a lot recently. This is for probably their local vote bank. But again, I don't want to get into the domestic internal affairs of a country. I'm not needed to go there. But I haven't seen the kind of sensitivity which should be there for a partner country. We are a partner country. Both of us democracies. Both of us are members of Commonwealth. Both of us are members of G20. So, we are partner countries in many sense. And then, instead of sort of standing with each other, Canada chose this path.
But you mentioned in that India has a judicial process, you have a judicial process. Do you think that this commission was, you've seen the Canadian law process, do you think that the Canadian commission was following their due processes when they were investigating this crime?
So, if you mean the commission on Nijjar, so that was with the investigating agency known as RCMP and local police, so there the police of jurisdiction happens to be the local police, and RCMP is the federal agency with federal oversight of investigations. So they are still conducting investigation. Nothing has been concluded, and that is what baffles me. That how can a responsible head of government say what the investigations are going, what are the contents of the ongoing investigation? In most of the law-abiding countries, this is a crime. That you are an official, you are a government official as the head of the government, and you are spilling the beans, as at least which you think are the beans, of an investigation which is ongoing.
So you still think that the investigation is not complete? It's an ongoing.
It is not completed.
It's not completed. Did they show you anything? I mean, they've not submitted it to India because that's what India is saying, India's position. But did they show you any document whereby there is proof that India was involved in Nijjar's killing?
Zero, zilch, nothing. So far, what I have heard is what they keep saying in the media, that India. Credible allegations are there. Now, come on, we are also English-speaking country in a way. So, what is credible allegations? Either they are credible or they are allegations. So, no evidence shared with us. No evidence, nothing which is judicially, legally acceptable presented to us.
Okay.
So that is why I always kept saying that you are a country of rule of law. We are a country of rule of law. So if you want to act upon an evidence that you give to us, it has to be legally acceptable.
So the voices coming out of Canada and their allies, the Five Eyes, seems to be that, look, if Canada has the evidence, we believe with Canada. They obviously must have shared it with the other, because that's what they do. They share intelligence among the Five Eyes countries. And immediately after Canada came up with it, America also backed what they said was Indian interference. And then you subsequently saw it happening elsewhere too. So they must have shared some evidence with each other, right? Otherwise, but they're not willing to share it with India for whatever reason. But there must be some evidence, otherwise why would they
But tell
bring
me,
it to this level?
I'll put the question slightly differently.
Okay.
Just for our discussion. If they have such watertight evidence, which is legally acceptable, why have they not gone to the court of law in Canada? What are they looking for? Why do they need to show it to us? They have never done it in the past. Did they do it in Kanishka crash? They didn't. So, what is stopping them from presenting to their court of law a legally acceptable so-called evidence? So, for all I know, there is no evidence. There are hearsay. So, even if you look at the Foreign Interference Commission hearing which is going on, there is the last phase. Most of the documents where India is mentioned, it says in many instances it says this information is single sourced. What does it mean? That I get hold of a person on the street, say that, do you like India? No, I don't like. That is single sourced. What is the corroboration? So, does Canada has India baiters? Yes, they have. These Khalistani extremists and terrorists are all India baiters. They do not have the interest of Canada-India relation either on their mind. Better Canada-India relations. So, if you source your information like that, without any corroboration, single source information, you can draw whatever conclusion you want, but that cannot be treated as evidence.
So when they say that that the Bishnoi group hired somebody to kill, or there is a gang which is operated from India which is going about killing targets, and there are many targets whether in Canada or in America or both countries, these are all hearsay. They don't have intercepts.
So that is a different case altogether. If there is a criminal gangs are there in all countries, it's in India as well.
Outsourcing of criminal gangs, that's what the allegation is. That's why your name.
So, if you look at Canada, it's a country where there are so many gangs working, some of them with impunity. But there are so many gangs there. And gang wars are not uncommon in Canada. We have seen so many killings happening. So, as far as this Bishnoi is concerned, he is in the prison here. What we understand that Goldie Brar, who is supposed to be one of the close links with him, he is in Canada. We have given them the information on that, shared the information. After that, they had been looking for Goldie Brar. All of a sudden, everything has gone cold.
So there's this. This is the poster. We got this.
Absolutely. So this is the organization known as BOLO, BOLO. This is a civic organization.
Okay.
All right. Because probably from the legal perspective, RCMP itself cannot make a wanted list. But they collaborate very closely with the law and order authorities. And this was, so number 15 was his serial number in the wanted list.
So till this point, when his name went on the list, were they in conversation with you about this man?
They were
no?
in conversation
or they did it on their own?
with our system.
Okay.
Yes. Because we are the ones who informed them.
On Goldie Brar?
On Goldie Brar as well.
Whose real name is Satinder Singh Brar.
So Goldie Brar is on our list of extradition.
So you gave the information.
Absolutely. With all the evidence.
You, matlab, India gave the information on Goldie Brar.
Absolutely.
Why do we want him back?
Because he has committed crimes in India.
Okay.
He has committed murders in India.
But he's a Canadian passport holder.
Yes.
Okay. And would you know offhand since when he's been operating in Canada?
I think it has been quite a few years.
Okay, so we want him back for crimes committed in India while he's sitting in Canada.
Absolutely.
Okay. He was on Canada's wanted list and
on our persuasion.
On India's persuasion. But it seems to have vanished one fine day. Why?
So very difficult. We can only do the guesswork. So either he's no more wanted, so that's one way of looking at it, or he has lost his life. That's another way of looking at it, or he's hands
Turned
and gloves
approver.
with someone else.
Yeah, he could have turned approver, is what the street is saying, right? Many are saying, of course, you will not officially tell us yes or no, but for it to just vaporize for no reason a name, either they have eliminated themselves. That is also possible. A Canadian, I don't know what their laws are, whether they can eliminate people.
I'll have my doubts.
You have your doubts. Okay. All right. So that is one case. Now he was also part of gang warfare. Everybody knows that in
Absolutely,
Canada. He
absolutely.
was.
Nijjar was part of a gang war.
Okay.
There's a whole list
Huh.
who were gangsters and why they were fighting with each other. Most of them were running drugs. Most of them were running guns. Most of them were involved in human trafficking across the border south into the US. Now, this business, and this is a business. This business, so they became something like gangsters who would like to control the turf, and then the turf war starts.
You mentioned in an interview that Khalistanis are deep state assets, Canada's deep assets. You've said that. So, is that the only way to beat gang wars?
No, see, okay. Let me get to the background. So when the interviewer kept me pushing that Mr. Trudeau spoke in the parliament and therefore that should be taken as the biblical truth, I said, okay, here is my allegation that Khalistani terrorist goons and extremists are deep assets for CSIS, which is their intelligence organization. She said, what is the evidence? I said, what was the evidence when he said? So if that is biblical truth, why is this not biblical
हाँ,
truth?
तुम करो तो रास लीला, हम
हाँ
करे
हाँ
तो
वही बात
कैरेक्टर
है।
लीला।
तो ऐसे थोड़ी होता है। या तो आप दोनों को माने। अगर आप मुझसे पूछ रहे हैं कि आपके पास साक्ष्य क्या है, आप उनसे भी पूछिए आपके पास साक्ष्य क्या है, जो कि बाद में उन्होंने डिपोजिशन जब उन्होंने दिया फॉरेन इंटरफेरेंस कमीशन के सामने, तो कहा कि उस समय मेरे पास कुछ भी नहीं था, मैं तो ऐसे ही बोल दिया। फिर एक जगह वो मुस्कुराते हुए बोलते हैं कि दिस वाज डन टू सेंड चिल टू इंडिया। एक जिम्मेवार प्रधानमंत्री के रूप में आप कैसे ऐसा कह सकते हैं? और ये रिश्ता कोई आज का नहीं है, आपने नहीं बनाया है। ये रिश्ता सदियों से चला आ रहा है।
राइट।
और हम लोग सबों के पूर्वजों ने बनाया है ये। उसको आगे ले जाना हमारा फर्ज है। और वहां पर आप कह रहे हैं कि आई डिड दिस टू सेंड अ चिल टू इंडिया। I find it very objectionable statement.
Yes, from a prime minister, I guess. But he also, in one statement, he said that he was being magnanimous of. I mean, that's not the word he used, but he was kind of being magnanimous that in an international summit he could have embarrassed the Indian prime minister, but he didn't, and that the Indian prime minister was quibbling and not say, and instead talking about our list of 26 instead of the Nijjar thing. That's exactly. Somewhat what happened in that interview that you were doing with the Canadian broadcaster, also where she kept asking you about this case and you kept saying we've got 26 on the list too.
And we have got more than a decade long request pending with them. So why is it that our requests are not taken with seriousness, which is required? And if you say that, you know what, this is a list, this is not an evidence, this is lead of intelligence, why don't you take legal action? Is that fair? If you are a rule of law country, we are too.
Yeah.
And our laws are as stringent as your laws could be.
See, the Ministry of External Affairs, when they put out their response, I mean, I've never seen such a strongly worded document. I mean, everybody sat up to say, हाँ ये MEA को क्या हो गया? इतना strongly worded. Even some of us, jaded MEA beat reporters who have seen things like candid, which means gali galoch hui, but cannot say gali galoch, but use the word candid. We understand diplomatese or diplomatic language and the coding of the words. Even we were kind of surprised where straight on a mention of Mr. Trudeau and laying the blame squarely on him for having messed up the relationship, and very strong words. So do you think it was like as a diplomat, as somebody who was shouldering this very enormous task of improving ties between India and Canada. Do you feel that it was that complete frustration and breakdown at that point?
Just think of it. Just think of it. Any such press release is a Government of India press release, not only MEA.
Yeah.
Therefore, it would have undergone several vetting. So, our frustration with Canada, our anger towards Canada, our anger towards Canada's double standards ran so deep that we would have thought whosoever would have approved this text, and it would be approved at a very, very high level,
Yes.
that I can assure you.
I can imagine.
Would have said, enough is enough. And you are very right. We generally, India is a polite country. We are Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam country. So we don't come out with such harsh words. But in this case, we were put in a situation where we had to look at our diplomatic courtesies, which we follow generally. And we have to say that now we have to call a spade a spade. And that's what was done. Your second point that it talked about Mr. Trudeau largely, that is very correct. Because India and Canada had been friends and they will remain friends. Canadians are wonderful people and so are Indians. So we have nothing against Canadian citizens except Khalistanis. We have nothing against Canadian citizens. We have nothing against Canada as the beautiful, bountiful land. But the way in which this was handled by a sitting Prime Minister and his team was deplorable.
Would you say India has a Trudeau problem or Canada has a Trudeau problem or both?
Difficult for me to say. Whatever Canada has, the Canadians will be able to tell you better. But as far as we are concerned, we could have wished for a better understanding of our concerns in Canada by any Prime Minister sitting there.
Right. I have a poster here. These are the two posters that has. Can you tell me about that? The reward of $10,000 on you. This happened as soon as you were posted out there. Where were you? What was your first reaction when you saw that? And Apurva also, such a sweet lady. I don't understand why her.
And poor Manish.
And poor Manish. I just don't know why their names were also included. Why all three of you? And why the reward of 10,000? What happened? And residential address, you were there. So, acha, for reporting the residential address of Nijjar. So, what did you react to when you saw this?
He's an illiterate person. All right? At the same time, he is a goon. So he wants to intimidate you. If you get intimidated, he will push you further. Unfortunately, the three faces that you see there, they were not there to get intimidated. As far as the residence of Indian High Commissioner is concerned, it flies a tricolour.
Yeah.
So, even from a distance, one can say, aha, this is the residence of the Indian High Commissioner. This is the residence of the Consul General of India. Because we fly our tricolour with honour.
Right.
So, just think of that. So, therefore, whosoever has issued it, and we all know who has issued it, I don't know to take his name and make him famous, but he doesn't even know and understand this very, very small fact. How can he has the big picture? He is basically another gangster who uses money collected in various gurudwaras, money coming through extortions, and have a lavish lifestyle. He is driven in most luxury vehicles of the world. He has houses both in US and Canada. So,
with impunity he functions.
With impunity.
But you have ambassadors saying that until they don't do something, this comes under our First Amendment. I mean, in America, First Amendment, but it comes under freedom of speech. This is what we keep hearing from these Western democracies.
Especially in Canada, there is freedom of speech, and Canada got freedom of speech in its charter only in early 1980s. We have freedom of speech in 1947.
Yeah.
1950 when the constitution came, it came with freedom of speech embedded in it.
I'm going to come to that part about Indian media, but first, yes, go ahead.
So freedom of speech, yes. But the Canadian, I'm not an expert on Canadian law. So whatever I'm telling you is whatever research I have done. It is possible that I may be completely off, but this is my research. My research says that there are 5 different instances, 5 different conditions on the basis of which freedom of speech can be curtailed. One, I'll mention 3 of them probably, but 2 will be largely applicable. 1, incitement to violence. 2, hate speech. 3, social pornography and other things. So 3, there are 2 more. So there are limitations on freedom of speech even under the Canadian law and charter. Now let's analyze this, the 2 posters that you have put out. The first poster, when you look at it, is it not inciting violence? That I'll give you $10,000.
Doxing.
So is it not that? Is it not the hate speech? If I will not come to the second one, but if you see that, and this is just one poster. Recently, let me give you 2 instances. In one instance, close to Holi, they created 10 heads for me, called me Ravan, and then my effigy was burnt as Ravan. Is that not hate speech? Then they created another poster of mine, and they riddled it with bullets. Is that not hate speech? Then what it is?
Did you report all this to the police?
Yes. Not to the police, but to the Foreign Ministry.
To the Foreign Ministry. And what was the response?
The response was that we will forward it to the relevant authorities, which is correct. We also do the same. But
did you get a query from any of those so-called...
But the revert never came back.
Okay. So we presume that nothing happened after
So we presume that it went into a black box. Not to come out.
Not to come out. You keep saying we didn't get intimidated, we didn't get threatened by this. But see, you're not special forces. You're not trained in combat or personal, how to combat this. How do you feel that? And did at any point of time did you feel threatened physically?
Threatened, yes, but did I become threatened? No. So there were postures in all my public events. Not all, I'm sorry. In most of my public events, there will be these hooligans outside shouting slogans against India, but also against me. Some of them are very burly looking, tall guys who would also gesture to physically harm me, but just the gestures, except for a few incidents. So they tried.
What incidents? They came close to you?
Yes. So they tried to intimidate me through such slogan shouting, abusing me verbally. But I don't think
They didn't try to physically harm you?
They did on a couple of occasions.
Did you report that?
That was reported.
Do you think that they were caught?
So we reported and we were told that investigations are on.
But did they show you any photograph for you to identify whether...
No.
They didn't?
Because the police was already... So all these attempt to harm me bodily, that was in presence of RCMP and the local police. And the local police on the ground took immediate action, pushed him away because there was a sharp weapon. And the RCMP then whisked me from the side door to the venue.
So open carrying of weapons is allowed in Ottawa? Was it in Ottawa?
It was in Alberta.
Alberta. Open carrying is allowed?
I'm not an expert on Canadian law, so I'll not be able to say that.
Okay.
But most likely, they would have said that it is kirpan, which is a small blade, whereas they had swords in their hand.
And they could come close to you.
They could come very, very close to me.
The security that you had in Canada, was it Canadian security or Indian security?
Canadian security, both the federal as well as the local.
Did you at any point of time doubt their ability to protect you?
No, that I won't say. They were very professional, well trained, very respectful. So as far as the police officers who were protecting us and now protecting my colleagues there, very, very professional. Never had an iota of doubt on their professionalism. But unfortunately, the statement which we saw in the RCMP press briefing, where even the investigation has not been concluded, that was a sad thing to see.
Did you at any point of time feel, I didn't sign up for this?
No.
I'm supposed to conduct diplomacy and here I am risking my life.
Okay, so diplomacy for most of us would be, being nice, niceties. But then the final objective of diplomacy happens to be to safeguard your national interest.
Right.
National interest could be improving relationship. National interest could be raising awareness against these Khalistani goons. All these are national interest. So we work for the national interest. It so happened that my national interest was a bit different than the national interest of most other ambassadors in other countries.
Ambassador, the diplomatic corps has suffered casualties in the past in Afghanistan and in the other places. It has happened. One doesn't expect diplomats to be the brunt of violence. It's usually the armed forces who are stationed wherever, whether as peacekeepers or whatever. But diplomats you don't think will be targeted. But these are different times when things like this are happening, where you're seeing Khalistanis target diplomats. The Indian ambassador in the US, similar kind of situation happened with Taranjeet Sandhu, where slogans were raised against him and they came close, but they were tackled with. It happened with Mr. Doraiswamy, Ambassador Doraiswamy in the UK. There too, then he had to revert. It's happening increasingly. And strangely enough, it's happening in Western countries, where one is supposed to think that they're safer. Our diplomats are safer in those countries, not in Afghanistan or not in Pakistan, but there. How do you explain this?
It's quite a double standard. Let me just start with that. So, in one of they call it protests, I call it hooliganism. In one of such incidents, they came and one of my officials wanted to enter the High Commission. He was told that, look, there is a protest going on, please don't go. So he called me up. I said, just tell them that there is a right of freedom of expression or speech to the protesters, but you don't have any right. You also have a right to safety, security. And these are the police guys. So if you want to enter our premises, and as the owner of premises, we allow you to enter, you should have no fear. So there was one law for them, another law for me. In one of the incidents in Greater Vancouver area, where I was going for a public interaction of my own community, the Khalistani goons came in and they shouted that they had weapons, etc. Weapons, sword largely, in their hands, and bhala, as we say in Hindi, barchi and bhala. So that was there. And RCMP came to me, he said, sorry, we cannot guarantee your safety, so please don't go. And that was the first incident that I faced. So I said, all right, if that is your advice, I will not go. Because after all, security is a concern. They bashed up those who were the guests there. Some of them bled, filed police complaints. They were all Canadian citizens.
But persons of Indian origin.
Persons of Indian origin. So, so their right to protest, if I can call it protest, so their right of protest is superior to my right of passage. What is this law? If I am walking on the street, in a country which prides itself to be a country based on rule of law, then my right to passage is as important as others' right to protest.
See, this is one of the that foreign interference that you were talking about. It's the same thing. We've been listed. I've been listed, and several other journalists have been listed, and news organizations in India have been listed. So their media is allowed freedom. Indian media reporting in India is supposed to be foreign interference when we do stuff like tweeting or covering news within our own soil. So we have listed out here for one of the things that the Canadian High Commissioner coming out of South Block asked by our reporter a question. South Block is Indian External Affairs Ministry. That area is in India, Indian soil. The reporter is Indian. The media is Indian. Reporting on Indian media. And it is called foreign interference because it was covered. So I just cannot understand how they come up with this list. So that's why when they put out the list, I mean, we were all like so shocked that what is this? One of the tweets that one person had done was like, went back 3-4 years ago.
So there are two things in this. One is that your journalists have a freedom. And do you really think that Indian law doesn't provide freedom to my journalists?
Yeah.
One. Two, who are you to point it out? Who are you? Have I made you the police? You are not the global police. We have not authorized you. So who are you to tell us which media personality is doing what? So, and this is a public document.
Yeah.
That is second thing. Third thing, if
This is the kind of investigation that has happened.
So it also shows that the officials of the Canadian consulates in India, officials of the Canadian High Commission in India, they go much deeper to interfere than we think of. They collected all these information. They did all these analysis. And then they had the courage to come out and say that your journalists are not free. Have a heart. What are you saying? One law for you, another law for me? This is a double standard, and if I can say it in Hindi, which sounds very crude, doglapan hai. So, therefore, please introspect, because Canadians are good people. Please introspect. What is going wrong? There is not, whether it is international law or any other law, it is not that there is one set of rule for you, there is another set of rule for countries of global
So
south.
one of the things that they accuse you of is that you were trying to gather information on Khalistanis and gather information on people who are Canadian. So were you gathering information?
Information on the enemies of India? Certainly. How did I gather? Open source, media, social media. In social media, whenever they want to hide anything, they will publish it in Punjabi. So I have officers who can read Gurumukhi. They will read it, and then we will analyze and find a trend. But never ever any covert means was used. I personally would be attending public events probably 3 or 4 a week with large gatherings. So if people would come to me and say something, that is very much my diplomatic duty. That is very much allowed by the Vienna Convention. But am I going clandestine to get the information? Absolutely not.
So suppose somebody from the mission goes and sits in a gurdwara and asks the person sitting next, कि यहाँ पे निज्जर आता है क्या? Does that mean that he is doing covert activity?
Absolutely not.
And suppose Nijjar dies next day, does that become covert activity?
I don't think so.
By association, does it become covert activity?
I don't think so.
It doesn't. There could be two separate things that are happening.
It's the Vienna Convention allows you to not gather, but to get the information and then use it for whatever purpose you want to use
because
it.
India saw Nijjar as a terrorist.
Absolutely.
Canadians didn't see him as a terrorist, but as a gangster. They knew he was a gangster. He was on the no-fly list and everything. So they knew. And such people, aren't they under surveillance?
I will not be able to confirm or
You
not
won't be able
confirm
to.
that because there's a Canadian thing. But, you know, Nijjar's whereabout was known to everyone, all gangsters. So God knows who killed him. That will only come out after the investigations are over. Uh, but blaming what they called as agents of the government of India is absolutely ridiculous. It lacks all decencies. It lacks any evidentiary threshold.
So they keep saying Bishnoi gang, uh, and you also explained, and I think our viewers and listeners also, those who are sitting in America or sitting abroad who don't know, Bishnoi is sitting in jail in India, and recently he's supposed to have engineered, or his supporters or his gang is supposed to have engineered an assassination of a lawmaker, of a leader of an alliance, a partner of the ruling party in India. So why would India use a gangster who is sitting in a jail, who's supposed to have assassinated or killed somebody who's their alliance partner, to have used somebody from that gang to do an assassination in another country? But then I don't know how this, I mean, I'm not giving a clean chit to anybody, but these are some of the questions which everybody's asking, that the dots are not joining, and whenever these gang wars happen, the dots need to join. So they can't, you can't just make a wild allegation, and unless there is a connectivity in the whole thing. And just today there's this the NIA, the National Investigation Agency of India, has announced a bounty of 10 lakhs for Anmol Bishnoi. He's the brother of Lawrence Bishnoi, charge sheeted in 2 NIA cases. Now, if Canada says that India used the Bishnoi gang to conduct this assassination of Nijjar in Canada, Bishnoi's brother is now, there's a bounty offered by the Indian government for Bishnoi's brother. Bishnoi is in jail. None of the 26 presumably are in jail or have been eliminated or whatever by the Canadians. We still don't know about it. But this is the latest that we have today on this. So explain to me that why does Canada continue to believe that it is Bishnoi? Do they want access to Bishnoi? Have they asked India for access to Bishnoi as yet?
Not that I know of. And there is no reason why they should, unless they present evidence that a crime has been conducted by by him himself or on his directions. But let me take you a little bit in a different path. You said why. So if the regime of a country, current regime of a country, has already decided on a final objective, which is to malign India, then the narrative will have to be built. This is one of the supporting elements in their narrative. The element may be false, the element may be absolutely ridiculous, but they want their narrative to be supported. Now, you and me who read news, you and me who analyze them, would understand. But a normal person walking on the street will believe whatever narrative is told to him or her. So the objective is to malign India, and therefore whatever suits their narrative will be taken into the narrative building.
So are you categorically saying that there was no involvement of the Bishnoi gang in killing of Nijjar?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Okay.
Reason is very simple, that how was Nijjar killed, who killed him, is yet to be known.
But sir, if a foreign government is blaming an Indian gang of conducting an assassination, are we not conducting our own investigation on the side to find out whether Bishnoi gang has done this?
See, Bishnoi is already in prison, and I'm sure I can't speak for others, but our law and order authorities would be keeping an eye on him.
And India is not connected at all in any manner with all this gang warfare which is happening?
Government of India is not connected, no. Absolutely not. That is not the kind of democracy we are.
But do we try to find out when it is happening? Like, does your does the mission try to find out kisne kisko mara, kyun mara? Because Khalistanis are doing, somewhere it is morphing, right? The boundaries are morphing in the sense that some of the gangsters are coming in as asylum seekers to Canada and then conducting these operations. In fact, there are reports that some of them come as students and then they sit in the protest, and a photograph is taken that they're sitting in protest, and then they get asylum in that country.
देखिए, जो आपने कहा पता करने की बात, पता हमें कहाँ से लगेगा? कैनेडियन अथॉरिटीज से.
Right.
मैं आरसीएमपी से पूछ सकता हूँ, मैं लोकल पुलिस से पूछ सकता हूँ. जवाब बड़ा सिंपल आता है उनका. दिस इज एन इन्वेस्टिगेशन विच इज ऑन. Once it is concluded, and if we need to inform you, we'll do so. In other cases, there are personal informations involved which we cannot share with you. Because, as I told you earlier, we don't get into covert information gathering. So we have to go overt, and when we do overt information gathering, we go to the authorities, we ask them, and the authorities would say, sorry, we cannot tell you. So then we hit a wall.
So at what point of time did you feel that the Canadian authorities are not proactive in sharing information with you and communications have broken down?
They had never been proactive in sharing
Never been.
information. Never been. Because
Even before the Nijjar case?
yes. See, they will always say that our law doesn't allow us to do that. If there is a transnational crime, in that case, there are channels established which can be used to share evidence.
Okay. One question which many people want us to ask you is that why is the Canadian government hesitant to act against Khalistani terrorist or militants or separatists, whatever you want to call them? There are different terms used in Canada, different terms used in India too. So why has Canada always been hesitant? I mean, they are victims of it too. The Kanishka bombing happened. Hundreds of their citizens have died as a result of that bombing and other incidents. So why are they hesitant to share information? Why are they hesitant to crack down on Khalistanis?
So, to my mind, I can only guess, because I'm not sitting there in their cabinet. So I can only guess that they must be getting some benefit out of it. The regime of the day would be getting some benefit of support, benefit of money, benefit of protection, benefit of getting elected. So there must be some benefit. So what we have termed it as, it is for the domestic vote bank.
But domestic vote bank, you say that they're just 3%, Sikhs are just 3% of the population. Out of that, there's a small percentile which would be Khalistanis or sympathetic to the Khalistan cause. Not all Sikhs are. So is that worth Canada's while? And look at the other side, the trade relations they have with India, the number of Indian students who go there, the people-to-people contact, so much of benefit. Would they put that in jeopardy for that minuscule vote bank?
So what happens in the Indo-Canadian community there? Indo-Canadian community, for the viewers and listeners, is those people who are Canadian citizens of Indian origin. 98% of them go about doing what they do, living peacefully, taking care of the family, contributing to the Canadian economy, etc. But others are very vocal. And as we have said that those babies who cry louder will get fed. So they get fed. And somehow they have been able to build a narrative that these 10,000 of the Khalistani terrorists and extremists represent the Sikh community, which is absolutely incorrect and falsehood. Then the Indian community, which is Indian diaspora, is also seen as being led by these Khalistanis. And these narratives, which had been built over a period of time, tells the regime of the day that they are important. Secondly, what they have been able to achieve is to put their own people in the parliament, in positions of authority in various departments, uh, including at the lower levels and the upper levels. So they have been able to influence not only the political dimension, but also the executives in Canada.
Oh, okay.
So the institutions in Canada, most of the institutions, they also have got recruitments done from, they're Canadians, so they have right to get recruited. So I'm not saying that they cannot. But amongst them, there are many who side with the Khalistani terrorists and extremists, and therefore propagate the narrative in the organizations they are.
So they are a powerful community, the Khalistanis, right? Tell me about this whole migration thing, that how they bring in people, and can we not stem it out here? Because one hears that all they need is a certificate from saying that they have been ill-treated by the police, which is available for a couple of lakhs in India, in Punjab. वो certificate दिखा के you can get asylum in Canada. So, or you go as a student and then you show that. So, we can stop that in India, right? Or is it just...
बहुत मुश्किल है जी. देखिए, ऐसा है कि जब यहाँ से गए तो मासूम बच्चे थे.
हाँ.
वो गए वहाँ पढ़ने के लिए, बेचारों को नौकरी नहीं मिली, उनको खाने की परेशानी हुई. उस समय ये जो खालिस्तानी टेररिस्ट और एक्सट्रीमिस्ट हैं, उस समय उनको अपने चंगुल में ले लेते हैं और फिर वहाँ से उन्हें ग्रूम करते हैं. अब जब उनका वीज़ा ख़त्म होने आता है, तब तो उनको रहने के लिए कोई ना कोई तो अथॉरिटी चाहिए.
हाँ.
तो सबसे आसान उनको लगता है कि इसको एसाइलम सीख करा दो.
हाँ.
तो एसाइलम के लिए जो
क्राइटेरिया
धांधलियाँ जो होती हैं,
हाँ.
कि इंडियन हाई कमीशन के सामने भारतीय तिरंगे को फाड़ दो, उसे पैर के नीचे रौंद दो और कहो कि अब तो मैं भारत जाऊँगा तो मेरी तो ऐसी की तैसी हो जाएगी. तो ये सब कर आके उनके चैनल्स बने हुए हैं जिसके थ्रू वो सबमिट कर देते हैं एसाइलम के पेपर्स. अब तो ये वहाँ का तंत्र जो है उसको समझना चाहिए कि इसमें किस तरह से नकली दस्तावेज आ रहे हैं. उन्हें चाहिए कि, मेरी सलाह ये रहेगी, कोई उन पर प्रेशर तो हम कर नहीं सकते, वो सॉवरेन कंट्री हैं, कि उन्हें हमें चेक करने भेज दें कि देखिए ये आपके यहाँ से आया है, क्या आप चेक करा सकते हैं जिसने भी साइन किया है इसको,
कि यहाँ पर वो विक्टिमाइज है कि नहीं.
केवल वही नहीं, जिसने भी ये सर्टिफिकेट क्रिएट किया है,
हाँ.
ये उसने क्रिएट किया है कि ये फॉल्सली बनाया गया है. ये देखिए यहाँ पे इस तरह से कि अगर उस तरह का एक पेपर बगैर सिग्नेचर के मिल जाए, हम नाम बदल देंगे, नीचे साइन करवा देंगे. वहाँ किसको पता है कि किसका सिग्नेचर है? वो लेटर हेड से मतलब लेटर हेड है वहाँ पे, तो कम से कम वो करवा लें.
हाँ.
और दो अच्छे मित्र तो यही करेंगे ना.
राइट.
लेकिन आपको अगर मुझ पर शक है तो आप कभी नहीं करेंगे. तो ये जो शक वहाँ पर है ना, शक का एलिमेंट, वो क्रिएट किया गया, वो डायरेक्टिव बिल्ड किया गया.
और वो कई वर्षों से चल रहा है. इट्स नॉट अ न्यू फिनोमिनन.
एब्सोल्युटली नॉट. You are looking at least 40 years.
Yes, but tell me one thing. You're talking about 40 years, so let me take you back 40 years. You know, it was the entire leadership of the Sikh, of the Khalistani separatist movement used to sit in America. There was Olak and who is that other chap? Dillon, Ganga Singh Dillon. They all used to sit in America. And when did it shift to Canada? When did that happen?
So it's a porous border. So some of them have dual citizenship.
Huh.
But many newcomers found it easier to go to Canada and getting the Canadian citizenship. So the recent flow of these Khalistani extremists and terrorists had been to Canada. Now, many of them escape the system and go to Canada, but there are many others who go from here as innocent persons. They are changed by these
grooming gangs
into criminals.
Yeah. You know, as we conclude, I have to ask you this. You know, when you represent India, you carry the tag of representing the largest democracy in the world. But then there are articles like this which are appearing. There's one article which it just got my attention. It was just a couple of days back. This is what it says. It's in a magazine which says Canada needs help to challenge a rogue India. Now, there's a lot of narrative building which you've been talking about of India being portrayed as a rogue nation which conducts covert ops in foreign soil. Now, everybody knows about, and Hollywood has glorified the covert ops that America conducts, has been conducting in Africa, in rest of the world, including in our neighborhood. Everybody knows about MI6, everybody knows about James Bond, everybody knows about Mossad. And if those of you who haven't seen, please do watch Munich. But everybody knows that. I'm not saying India has conducted covert ops in foreign soil, but what I'm saying is that India is now being termed as a rogue nation, and that these G7 countries should get together to crush India down because it's a rogue nation. How do you as a diplomat see this?
So first thing is that the term rogue India has been created by the editor of this magazine or newspaper, whatever it is.
Foreign policy.
Foreign policy. I don't think any leader has said India is a rogue country. So therefore, I will not get into that. That's his editorial prerogative.
Yes.
I don't like it, him saying this. But yes, Mr. Trudeau has said publicly. Melanie Joly, who is the foreign minister, has said publicly that we need our allies to come together to challenge India. This is, I don't know which world are they looking at, living in. We had always wanted a strong Canada-India relation, India-Canada relation. They are the ones who have destroyed it. There had been occasions where we did not see eye to eye. There had been occasions where we did not have convergence, but at least we were civilized.
But this, several op-eds which have appeared in India which say that so long as Trudeau is there, things will not improve because he's dependent on the Khalistanis for support. And he's made this a personal agenda. But there are others also who say that it's not just a Liberal Party problem. The Conservatives also have this. They also need that. And it's not as if Pierre Poilievre can do without the Khalistanis' support. Why has he not gone through the security clearance process that was needed for him to get the information? He's not done that apparently.
I'll let Mr. Poilievre talk about it.
Okay.
That was his decision, or that has been his decision even today.
Yeah.
So I'll not get into that discussion. And as far as
he has Tim Uppal in his. On his side. He's
people.
A Khalistani supporter.
There are people. I'll not term any of them as such. He has a team. We have not seen that team working so far because they are part of the official opposition. But what the two countries should look at, and I as a diplomat should certainly look at it, is the first window of opportunity that we get in order to get them to address our concerns, which is the fundamental principle of improving the relationship. And our core concern has been told to them several times. These are Canadian citizens challenging Indian territorial integrity and sovereignty. As long as these people, these Khalistani extremists and terrorists, keep talking about Canada, I have no issues. That's their domestic issue. They can do whatever they want. As soon as they put look at dividing India, then it is my problem. And that problem I will certainly take to the Canadian authorities to say that, listen, you have to resolve this. They want a country of themselves. I would say if Canada Canada wants them to be there and they are so kind to them, Canada is a huge country. Give a space to them, call it Khalistan.
Where can they make a Khalistan in Canada?
Oh my God, there is so much of open space.
Right. So if Khalistan is to be made, it is in Canada, never in India.
Never in India.
Do you realize that in the maps, they never show Pakistan as part of Khalistan? Any part of Lahore, nothing.
I do.
That is never a part of. No. Are they collaborating, Pakistan and Canada, in this?
I don't have an evidence to share, but my gut feeling is that there would be some kind of loose linkage between the two.
Khalistani elements in Pakistan or state support?
I would say very difficult for me to say, but there would certainly be some loose linkages between Khalistanis who are protected in Pakistan, and we know of them, and the Khalistanis who are in Canada.
Right. You've been declared PNG. Is Government of India going to replace you at any point of time and send somebody else in your place?
Time will say.
What about you? Once you get a tag of PNG by Canada, can you go as ambassador to any of the G7 countries?
As long as they are ready to accept me.
So can they reject you?
Yeah, they can reject. That's their prerogative. So,
Okay.
so the process of appointment of an ambassador is that your own country nominates you. Then the dossier is sent to the receiving country. They have a right to say no. That I don't want this person to be your representative in my country. And it's absolutely fine. Vienna Convention allows them that right, which generally doesn't happen. But you never know, the world is changing.
Do you see India telling Canada, या तो इन्हीं को ले लो, नहीं तो हम किसी और को नहीं भेजेंगे?
देखिए, तो हमसे बहुत लोग ऊपर में बैठे हुए हैं जिनका ये डिसीजन है.
हाँ.
और मेरे लिए तो बस एक ही है कि जहाँ भी रहूँ भारत की इज्जत बरकरार रहे. जहाँ भी रहूँ वहाँ पर कभी भी ऐसा महसूस नहीं होने दूँ कि भारत नीचे जा रहा है.
Is it difficult for your family, sir?
Very, very. Just to give an example, wherever we go, we display India with us. So we have a lot of artifacts from India. My wife is a very good artist herself. So she has created many genres of Indian artwork. And when you pack them up, it takes time. So it takes, for me, for my household, when I was in Tokyo, transferred to Ottawa, it took me about 7 days. I had 3 days to pack. Finding a packer who would be able to take good care of your stuff is not so easy in Canada. Takes time. Not so easy doesn't mean that they have many, but it takes time. They will do the assessment, etc. So therefore, whosoever agreed, we have to get him, get the packing done in 3 days and push it out from the residence. So that is one part. Thankfully, I didn't have school-going children with me. But my other colleagues had school-going children. Just think of it, they had to be withdrawn. How do you explain to a 6-year-old what is happening? What has his father done, or mother in some cases, that they have to go back so quickly? It's a trauma. It's trauma, psychological trauma in their minds which they never come out of. So we are soldiers without weapons, but at the front line. Army is on the front line, largely in the neighboring countries. We are on the front line all over the world.
And the stories never come out because you're not supposed to speak. I mean, the families don't speak about it. आज आपने बता दिया. And कुछ दिन पहले एक colleague of mine in the media, Indian media, whose father was posted in Ottawa, said, 20 साल पहले की बात है, where he said that when he used to go to school in Ottawa, he needed the police, the Canadian police, to give security. This is in Ottawa 20 years ago or 30 years ago, that when he was going to school, he needed support. Look at the Canadian High Commission here. Their children, when they move around, when जब उनकी family दिल्ली हाट घूमने जाती हैं या फिर किसी mall में जाते हैं, they don't need security, they are safe. But the Indians need security. So much for those countries thinking that they are rule of law countries and we are not.
देखिए, मैं तो यही चाहूँगा कि वो भारत बिल्कुल निर्भीक होकर घूमे. भारत में बहुत चीज़ें देखने की हैं, भारत में बहुत चीज़ें महसूस करने की हैं और बहुत चीज़ें एक्सपीरियंस करने की हैं. हमारी संस्कृति को देखें, सभ्यता को देखें, तब वो समझ पाएंगे कि भारत जब वसुधैव कुटुंबकम की बात करता है तो क्या बात करता है.
On that note, धन्यवाद, शुक्रिया, thank you for coming on the podcast. Thank you for telling us all about what happened with you, and be safe, and hopefully you will return to Ottawa one day.
Thank you, namaskar. Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you for watching or listening to this edition of the ANI podcast with Smita Prakash. Do like or subscribe on whichever channel you have seen this or heard this. Namaste, Jai Hind. Click here to watch the previous episodes.